Welcome. Are you on a budget? Are you looking for the cheapest fish? Well, I've compiled a list of 10 of what I think are the best. It's not just the cheapest fish, it's not just going to be a feeder goldfish, that type of thing. It's the value you get out of it. Is it going to live a long time? Is it relatively hardy? Usually if you're looking for cheaper fish, you may have had some bad experiences in the past, or you've got a really limited budget, you need to stretch that out, and these fish need to live a long time. So all these recommendations will do that. First up, I have the Sunset Variatus Platy. Now this fish, I keep it in my fish room today even. I remember the first time I got it was at a PetSmart for like $2.59, and they were breeding up a storm and they just always looked amazing. That's what I love about them, is the fact that, yeah, they might only live a couple years, but as long as you get a boy and a girl, they're gonna breed up and you're gonna have more and more. They really look good in a big number. The color is spectacular. They're super duper hardy. If you spend $10 and get 4 of them, a boy and 3 girls, you'll have so much color and eventually you'll have more fish, and it's just a really great option. Number 2, the black neon tetra. Now, some people might say, well, neon tetras are cheap too, but the black neon tetra is usually about a couple of bucks, maybe 3 or 4 if you really were paying that higher end. But what the important part about them is not so much are they $2 or $4, but the fact they're going to live 7 or 8 years for you, and they really get through diseases easily if they ever get them. They cohabitate with everything. They've got a nice black look with that neon stripe, so they're good against a plant background. And they pretty much get along with everything. And so they're also readily available at chain stores, most mom and pops. Pretty much any store can order them in if they don't have them, and they'll have success with that because they're not hard to ship either. The next one's kind of an uncommon one, and that is the Emerald Eye Rasbora. Now these are mostly a silverfish with a blue eye, but they school really well. They're usually pretty cheap, kind of that $2.50 and under. And so if you're looking for a hardy school that's going to hang out in your tank, these guys get a group of 6. If you get more, obviously that's better. But they're going to school around really tight, kind of like you get with rummy nose tetras, but at half the price. Now, a rummy nose has that red nose and that flagged tail, right? But they don't have that blue eye, and they're half as expensive. They're pretty rare in shops. I mean, some shops will stock them, but on average, they're not well known to be great schoolers. Like, people just don't know that, and so they don't buy them, and therefore, shops, they don't sell very many, then they don't carry very many. So you might have to ask for them by name. Number 4, the Coolie Loach. Now, this is a fish that seems to just keep going and going and going. You're going to pay somewhere between $2 and $5 for it. Most pet stores will carry them. You can get them in a black variety, a striped variety, even sometimes a silver Coolie Loach. They tend to just survive. They don't get attacked by other fish, really. They do well in planted tanks. They do well in non-planted tanks. They stick down to the bottom. 10 years later, you're probably still going to have Coolie Loaches in your tank, so long as it didn't have a major disaster. So the value on them is very, very good. They add that totally unique, different style of fish. You get to see them, kind of in the morning and at night. They don't like bright lights, so they add a whole other thing to look out for in that aquarium. And you only need to get like a group of 3, so even at $5, the high end, you're at $15 for something you're going to have for like 10 years. So it's a good investment, and you get to introduce yourself to loaches. Next up, I've got the Lemon Tetra. Now, gets a little bit bigger, so that's kind of cool. Very, very hardy. The problem with them is they don't display well at a store. They'll come in small. You'll see them like, yeah, there's a little bit of yellow. What's the big deal? But when they grow up, that yellow really intensifies. They got that red eye on them, and they got the black on them as well. And you can get them for like $3, $4, right? So you get a group of 6 of those, and I know that's going to be $20 to $24, right? Those guys, because they're bigger and they're really hard, you're going to last you a long time. They're going to contrast well with, maybe you got black neon tetras, maybe you got Variatus platies, whatever you're mixing them with, right? They're going to contrast, they're going to give you that school, and they're going to live a long time. You're going to get that 5, 6, 7, 8 years out of them. When you average it out over the years, this is a bargain fish. Number 6 is the feeder white cloud. Okay, I did throw a feeder in there, but it doesn't have to be a feeder. You can also just buy a white cloud. A full-on normal white cloud's like $2 anyway. But if your local fish store carries them as a feeder, sometimes you can get them 10 for $1, 5 for $1. Any amount under $1 is kind of good. They're gonna be really small though, so don't let them get eaten by your other fish. But in general, they don't have to be heated. They'll eat any type of food. They look really good. When they color up, those fins get jet red and they look good, and they'll spar with each other. The males will kind of dance, and so you get a lot of behavior out of them, and they're going to live a long time too. And so when you start adding that up, they used to be called a poor man's neon tetra. Honestly, they are one of the best fish in any pet store. They just don't have as much glamour as maybe the regular neon tetra and other things, but the fact that they're so hardy, they don't have to have a heated aquarium. You could actually even breed them, where neon tetras are pretty difficult, and you can find them for less than $1 sometimes. That's just a win-win when you're on the budget and you're looking for the cheapest fish. Next up, we've got albino corydoras. Now, a lot of times albinos and bronze corydoras are both good recommendations, but the albinos somehow always sell cheaper. I'm not quite sure why that is, but on every wholesale list I ever see, they're cheaper. They're cheaper in our store even. And you can find them as cheap as about $3. And it's a little corydora catfish, stays at the bottom. You want to get a group of minimum 3, but 6 or more would be better. And they're going to help kind of clean up, and they're going to stay in that bottom space. So maybe they're sharing it with those coolie loaches, or maybe it's just them. If you get the bronze ones, they're usually like $1 more. They get about 3 inches or so, not too big tallness, but lengthways. So you want at least a 20-gallon aquarium for something like that. And they're going to mesh in with all the other fish, especially if this is your one albino fish and you've got all these other colors. They're going to really stand out and look good against maybe a dark substrate or a planted background. You could breed them. They are prolific breeders. It's not too hard to breed them, and that's why the price stays down low. But you're going to get many, many years out of them. Usually you can get 10 plus out of them. They're like having little dogs running around. Number 8, I have the Harlequin Rasbora, or the Rasbora Het. Now these guys, they've got that orange color, which is not common. You can get them in that $3 to $5 range. Another schooling fish. Just another great option. They tend to fight off disease pretty well. They are a little susceptible to velvet, but luckily velvet's a more rare disease. But they usually handle meds really well, so if you're a beginner, that's a good one. Or they just look really good against planted backgrounds, and they're going to mesh with all these other types of fish. So it's a great thing to add. It's a Rasbora. If you didn't go with the blue-eyed Rasbora, maybe you're going to check these ones out. Number 9. Zebra Danios or leopard Danios. Both these are crazy hardy. The leopard Danio is the one I think most people don't know about. They look a lot cooler, kind of have leopard print, right? You can get them for $2, $2.50, $3 if you're paying on the high end. They come in some long fin varieties. You pay an extra 50 cents for that. But these guys are super active. They're going to hang out at the top. You can mix leopard and zebras, and they cohabitate just fine. Lots of motion out of them. Cheap. Get a group of 6, maybe 3 zebras and 3 leopards. Have them up top. They'll be crazy. They'll eat a lot of food at the top. They shake off disease. They're tolerant of all water parameters. They don't even have to have a heated tank technically. Budget friendly. They don't live quite as long as some of the tetras. Like I find on average they're going to live 4-ish years. You might be able to get a little more, especially if you keep them colder. If you keep them colder, they're going to live longer, whereas if you keep them hotter, metabolism's going to race for years, and then you'll get a little bit of die-off early. Last but not least, cherry barbs. These guys are amazing. The males get bright red, right? And even though they're a barb, they're really laid back. You can usually get them for $2 to $3.50 or so, somewhere in that zone. They come in a long fin variety also. You're going to pay a little bit more for that. But easy to tell boy from girl. I would recommend getting boys and girls, because if you have no girls, the boys aren't quite as good looking. Going to look really good against a planted background. That red color, all the other fish we've recommended so far haven't had that red color. So another one you could add into your mix. If you've got like a 55-gallon community tank and you've just been buying some of these recommendations, you're really going to like them. They're easy to feed. They get along with most things, and they've got that nice color on them. You can breed them. If you were to set up your own aquarium, raise them from eggs. They're an egg scatterer. Not that difficult. They're one of the easier ones, like a white cloud for egg scatterers. It can be done. Look up that on Google. But that's my 10 recommendations on good value, cheap fish that will serve you well in your community tank or your planted tank. From there, you can get as exotic as you want. But all of these are good basics that won't limit you, like, oh, because I got one of these, I can't get that now. The good news is these are really good community fish, and you can keep adding to it of whatever you fall in love with at your pet store. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.